Unapologetic.
We're here to take a stand for God and country. Does feel good, doesn't it?
America's Voice Live starts now.
And good afternoon, America. I am Mike Crispy, filling in for Steve today on America's Voice Live. Appreciate you coming to us on a very important news day. Obviously, the White House having a lot to say, and really everybody in conservative media and even on the left have a lot to say. But I have one thing to say, and it is that we must, once and for all, stop the killing and the death and the destruction that is occurring right now. It is horrific. You see these shots coming out last night from Israel. You see a hospital being bombed. You see people's lives never going to be the same again. You see people forced to sleep in bunkers every night. And you see people from all over the world not know what's coming next. Thank goodness we have President Trump at the helm right now, and we don't have Kamala Harris. There's been a lot of talk from all sides of the aisle, all sides of even the MAGA base, on what needs to happen and what Trump should do and what Trump isn't doing, and all of these armchair quarterbacks acting like they know more than the greatest deal maker of our generation. Let me tell you something. Right now, the stakes couldn't be higher, and President Trump could not be more calm, cool, and collected. It's pretty unbelievable. It's pretty remarkable. The weight of the world hangs on his shoulders, and he is unflappable. And he's playing the art of the deal. You know, President Trump came out right before we went on the air, and Caroline Leavitt read a statement from him saying that he still believes that Iran will come to the negotiating table. It's very possible. And that he is now setting a 2-week deadline for them to do it. Let me tell you something. When President Trump says it, I think he already knows what's going to happen. I think he already knows that all sides of the equation here are going to need to fall in line. I think he knows something that I think is universally understood, that when you're dealing with third world radical Islamic terrorists, that they understand one thing above all else, and that is force and the threat of force. So they're going to come to the table. I think Israel understands that they need President Trump if they want a prosperous future too. So when everybody on every single side jumps and one side says we need to send in the troops for regime change, I say, whoa. When the other side says that President Trump is capitulating and being too soft, I say, whoa. I say, let's just wait for President Trump. He has earned the trust on this issue. And time again, even over the last couple of weeks, he has shown he has the ability and the know-how and the strength to diffuse international conflict. It wasn't long ago that he just stopped a nuclear war between Pakistan and India. Here's that, if you forgot. Roll the clip.
This man was extremely influential in stopping it from the Pakistan side, Modi from the India side, and others. And they were going at it, and they're both nuclear countries. I got it stopped. I don't think I had one story. Did I have one story written about it? I stopped a war between two major nations, major nuclear nations. I don't think I had a story written about it, but that's okay. You know why? The people know. The people know. Did anybody write that story about the war? Did anybody? Did you write it? Oh, did you write it? You wrote it.
So when people are going crazy that Trump should do this or Trump should do that, I say, wait a minute. When people say Trump is controlled by Netanyahu, I say, wait a minute. When people say Trump is being too soft in this and he needs to go in and do regime change, I say, wait a minute. This guy is the leader of the free world, and he is looking at the cards that are on the table. He's standing with our allies. He's talking tough to radical terrorists who want to wipe us off the face of the map, and he is restoring order. Here is President Trump in the Oval Office, I think, demonstrating more of that art of the deal. We have this next clip here. Let's roll that.
Answer questions about whether you are moving closer, or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities. Where's your mindset on that?
I can't say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate. And I said, why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction. Why didn't you negotiate? I said to the people, why didn't you negotiate with me 2 weeks ago? You could have done fine.
You hear there, he may do it, he may not. That is what Trump has done for the last 10 years. He has the cards, and he says, why would we tell anybody what we're going to do? Why would you give that up? That's how wars used to be fought back in the George Bush neocon days. We will invade in 3 days. We will strike back in 6 days. No. Trump put out a 2-week window. He could do anything in those 2 weeks, and Iran knows it. And they know he means business when it comes to not having a nuclear weapon. And I think that is wonderful news for the whole world that he's handling this like he is to the T. Here to join me to talk about it is Alex Trayman from the Jewish News Syndicate. Alex, great to have you on. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your reporting on this. I just want to start with what just came out from the White House not long ago. President Trump talking about 2 weeks. What do you think is going to happen in those 2 weeks? And do you think that these terms that President Trump is talking under is enough to get the Iranians to surrender to the table or risk really losing it all? What do you say, Alex?
Well, the president also talked about complete surrender and total victory over Iran. And I could tell you, at least from the Israeli government's perspective, that they're not interested in Iranian negotiations anymore. There was a clear communication between the president of the United States and the prime minister that the president would give a 60-day window to a negotiation period. And what we saw was that on the very 61st day that Israel launched its surprise attack on Iran, and by all estimates and all reports coming from Israel, the Israeli politicians and military are very satisfied with how the military campaign is going, taking out the nuclear scientists, head of the Iranian army and the Revolutionary Guards Corps, and also the nuclear facilities. So I think Israel is going to continue moving forward. I believe that they have all the plans in place to hit all the targets on their list, including by some non-conventional means, if that's what's required. And, if the president wants to come in the war, as an ally of Israel, they'll be certainly welcome to participate and join in. But if the president decides it's not in America's interest, Israel understood that that would be a possibility from the outset and is prepared to finish this on their own.
I think that's a fair stance to say that, Trump could make a deal. And if not, people, again, who are the alarmists on not standing with our ally Israel say, oh, you're going to, we're getting brought into a regime change war. I don't think that's necessarily what you're saying, trying to draw the United States into a regime change war. I think that's over alarmism on one side. I think Trump, wants there to be peace. And I think that he wants to, as you say, not have Iran have a nuke. If that means Israel finishing the job, great. If that means America has to do something because they won't, that's another thing. What do you make of those conversations about the regime change in America? And that's kind of, brewed some, sentiment against Israel, which I think is unfounded. What do you make of that talk from that side of the aisle saying that they want to draw us into a regime change war? What do you think about that?
Well, from the outset, Israel said that it had two goals. One was to neutralize the nuclear weapons threat. The second, to neutralize the ballistic missiles threat. And Israel's been hit with over 400, or at least over 400 ballistic missiles have been fired at Israel in the last several days, sending Israelis into the bomb shelters. But what we've seen emerge over the last day or so is increasing talk from Israeli officials, including the defense minister here in Israel, seeming to indicate that a third goal is to take out the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, the Ayatollah. And the prime minister has made many statements about the Iranian people's return to freedom. And there's a feeling here that Israel has given the Iranian people the trigger that they need to rise up against the regime. And the Iranians do have like a revolutionary history and a mentality. That's how the Islamic Republic came to being to begin with. And they would like to see a regime change in Iran.
So I think it's fair to say that regime change is the goal of the Israelis, but when it comes to America, I think, you and I, we have about 10 seconds here. You and I agree that they're not relying on or expecting America to get involved. I mean, what's the sentiment with that? Are they expecting it? Are they ready to handle it on their own? What do you say to that and to those critics who are saying that that's what they'll need or want or something like that?
Well, certainly Israel likes the support of the United States, and it's getting a lot of support from the United States, including weapons supply and also missile defense. But, Israel has got to be able to stand on its own. They say that they fight their wars by themselves, and they've shown that they've done that. I don't think it would be prudent on Israel's part to launch a war that they couldn't finish. So Israel has to understand that the president may or may not come into this war, and they need to be able to finish it on their own and finish it as swiftly as possible, and hopefully usher in several decades of peace and normalization agreements with other countries across the region.
I think that is a very fair take on it. Alex Trayman from the Jewish News Syndicate, we appreciate you coming on, sir, and thank you very much for all your reporting on this.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. America's Voice Live. Don't go anywhere. Everybody, I am Mike Crispy, filling in for Steve Gruber today on a very, very important news day. Steve had a chance to sit down with Representative Lisa McClain of Michigan's 10th Congressional District. Here is that interview.
And so I wanted to bring you on, well, apparently somebody who grew up in my neighborhood close enough. The chair of the House Republican Conference is Congresswoman Lisa McClain of Michigan's 10th Congressional District from 2021 to 23, and now it's the 9th because of realignment. But she's with me now, Congresswoman. Great to have you here. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So much going on. I sit there and I marvel at the now 79-year-old Donald Trump because, look, I get tired following him. The people in his circle get tired following him, just keeping up. I mean, he's in the Oval Office sometimes at 5 in the morning, sometimes till 11 o'clock at night. He'll talk to the media at 1 o'clock in the morning on Air Force One. It's pretty intense, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very intense. And in fact, we laugh about it. I'll come out of a meeting and there'll be a gaggle of reporters and it'll be like, oh my gosh, did you hear what President Trump just did? And it's like, no. I mean, as the messaging arm for the Republican conference, it's hard to keep up with him. But he's on a mission, that's for sure.
He is. All right, a lot of very serious things in the headlines. Let's start with the war back and forth between Israel and Iran. I think most people are on the page that we can take out Iran's nuclear weapons capabilities. That's what Israel is doing. It seems that we are helping in some fashion. There's also some conversation from the Situation Room this week that maybe we'll get more directly involved, but that's not a particularly popular position with some supporters and voters of Donald Trump. Where do you think we are in that conversation?
You know, I think it's on the table. However, I think the president has been very clear that he would prefer to stay out of it, to take a defensive posture, to support Israel, but not have directly be involved on the offense. But listen, at the end of the day, we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. He has been extremely clear on that. His hope is to make a deal. He's continuing the negotiations to try and get Iran to make a deal. But the ball's in Iran's court right now, and we'll see what they do. Our hope is that the president, who is a beautiful negotiator, can get this done without any more offensive attacks, and Iran will come to their senses. But hope's not a real good strategy, Steve.
Yeah, hope's not a strategy at all. But I am hopeful. Hopeful is just a state of mind. I am hopeful we can get through this without the United States getting directly involved. Certainly not boots on the ground. I think a lot of people would not be pleased with that outcome. However, it is safe to say that we are at a closer point since we've been since 1979 of Tehran changing regimes. I mean, they are the weakest they've been since they took the 52 American hostages for 444 days, something I remember clearly. You do as well, I'm sure. Yeah. It's an important opportunity, potentially. And so when people were saying we're on the verge of World War III, I said, no, we're on the verge of Donald Trump getting something done that has not been possible since 1979. What would you say?
Right. I take that same approach. I say we're on the verge of peace in the Middle East. Right, is if you look at where China's been, where Russia has been, Iran right now doesn't have a lot of support. Now, we want to make sure that it stays that way, but they're not extremely supportive of Iran right now. They haven't come to their defense. They haven't made any boastful statements. I think that's a clear signal. But I am with you. I don't think we're on the verge necessarily of World War III. We could be. Listen, I'm a realist, but at the end of the day, we also could be on the verge of peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, and that would be an extension of the Abraham Accords. It'd be an extension of what Donald Trump was pushing during his first term and now his second term. And so, yeah, that would be the natural outcome of where we are. And hopefully that happens. Meanwhile, he continues to try to work with Ukraine and Russia. No real traction there. We'll see how that plays out, and we'll keep an eye on it. But I want to shift to domestic issues if we could. Sure. The one big beautiful bill, you guys passed it out, 214, 212. A few Republicans went the other way. I get it. They're in complicated districts, shall we say, in places like New York. I understand. But the bill got through. It's in the Senate. A lot of conversation about what the spending levels are. Where do you think that conversation is now? Is the Senate going to get this done?
Yeah, the Senate has to get this done. And I say this all the time. I would not want to be the one that stands in President Trump's way of getting his agenda that 77 million Americans elected him to do. We did our job. We passed it out of the House. We were able to thread a very small eye of the needle with our very diverse conference. I think we put a very good product on the floor that is an investment in growth, right? We want to reignite the economy. We keep taxes low. I mean, think of in Michigan for 1 minute, Steve. If we didn't pass this bill, over 600,000 small businesses just here in Michigan would see their tax rate go up to 43%. That's horrible. And I think one of the biggest things that the Democrats try to lie about is we are actually putting programs in place to secure Medicaid. So we were able to pass a very conservative, not perfect bill. My message for the Senate has and will continue to be touch very lightly on the bill. It is a good bill. It's actually a great bill, I think. Pass it, send it back over, and let's get this done for the American people.
I look at some of the other things that have been said about Donald Trump in the first 150 days of his second term, give or take. The tariffs, we're going to create all this economic destruction. The tariffs, we're going to create massive inflation. The tariffs, none of that's turned out to be true. Inflation's at 2.4%. The jobs numbers have outperformed 3 or 4 months in a row. Gas is up a little, but that's because of the war between Israel and Iran primarily. It's at $3.18. It's still 50 cents lower than it was just 1 year ago when Joe Biden was in office. Oil's gone up a bit. But I look at the economy as a whole and I say, I'm pretty optimistic. As I look at the numbers here in front of me today, I'm pretty optimistic. You?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. I mean, Steve, don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. What about eggs? What happened to the egg prices, right? The Democrats were, oh, my God, eggs are, you don't hear about that anymore. The fear-mongering has absolutely got to stop. And just take a look at what President Trump is trying to do with the tariffs. He is trying to level a very unbalanced playing field for America. Over 80 countries have already come to the table to renegotiate their trade deals. That is a good thing for us. Yes. And I will also say people in my district, which is heavily manufacturing and agriculture, actually see it through the lens of job creation, which is a good thing. We want to bring more jobs back to this country. So I think the president's economic plan is working. And it's not my opinion. All you have to do is look at the facts, Steve, and the economy is going in the right direction for the American people.
Here's another fact. Not a single illegal release in the United States in May. 64,000 last May. That's a remarkable achievement. Remarkable.
Think about that. Think about how much safer we are, and think of under the old administration. President Biden said, we needed Congress to act. No, we just needed a new president, right? And whether you love Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump, personally, I think you know what the camp that I am in. If he tells you he's going to do something like secure the border, he's not messing around. He's securing the border.
He's going to get it done.
He's going to get it done.
Yeah, and he has, and there's evidence of that over and over again.
All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll continue with that interview with Steve Gruber and the Congresswoman coming right up after this. Don't go anywhere. back, everybody. Mike Crispy here, filling in for Steve. We have more of that interview with Steve Gruber and Congresswoman McClain. Here it is.
I want to talk about some of the illegals that came through during Joe Biden's time. 30,000 Chinese nationals or more. We don't really know. That's the problem with what happened with almost 20 million people, according to some estimates, coming into the country. What we do know is this. Coming in and out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, are college students, like many college towns in America. Some of those recently caught trying to bring in fungus to the United States that could, according to the people that I talked to in agriculture, could have wiped out half the American corn, wheat, rice, and barley crops. Half could be destroyed. It seems to me the Chinese are targeting us on all levels, but one of the places they're certainly targeting us, they're going after American farms, are the Chinese. How dangerous is this?
It's extremely dangerous. And I say this all the time. The Chinese are not our friend. The CCP is not our friend. They are coming after us militarily. They're coming after us economically, and they're coming after us educationally. So anybody who thinks that China is our friend is gravely, gravely mistaken. And yes, they are coming after us agriculturally, no question. But how they're doing it is they're coming through our universities. We have got to do a much better job of vetting these individuals. And last I checked, there's long waiting lists for American kids to get into these universities. So, Steve, why wouldn't we fill our universities with American students as opposed to Chinese students?
That's a great question. My question is this. In addition to the Chinese bringing in these pathogens, we have allowed foreigners to buy land in America, farmland, for a very long time. The Chinese have somewhere around 500,000 acres of American farmland. The state of South Dakota got rid of that provision. Should we, as America, allow China or Chinese citizens to own American land?
Let me think about that for a minute. No is the short answer. And here's why I say that. We can't trust them. Now, I realize that people are individual property rights, but China is not our friend. The other thing, would China let us buy a bunch of land? No, they wouldn't. Let's take a look at not only that they're buying the land, Steve, but let's take a look at where they're buying the land and what they're using that land for. They're buying it next to army bases. Interesting. Why would they do that? I don't believe in coincidences, and that's exactly what is happening. So I'm on a full stop right now. Right now, China's not our friend. There's no reason that they need to buy land, especially farmland, in the United States of America. I don't trust them, and I'll share with you, the farmers in my district don't want them as their neighbors.
Yeah, my question is this. If China tries to destroy American agriculture, create a crisis in the American food system, isn't that an act of war?
Well, it's a very good thing to consider, and I would say food security is national security, so yes. I would agree with you on that statement. Listen, we feed the bulk of the world, right? Yeah. We have got to make sure that our food is sustainable and that we can produce it. And look at what's happening right now. We just had some students, like you said, at the University of Michigan, unfortunately, come in with pathogens to try and harm our food supply. Gee, do you think we should protect ourselves from that? I say yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, what should the punishment be for those students caught trying to poison the American food supply? That'd be the real question. How should they be dealt with?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, they have to have some strict and severe consequences, and they need to leave the country immediately and then never be allowed in. But I think the problem is a little bit deeper than that, Steve. We have got to do a better job of vetting these individuals. Let's start with the mere fact China is not our friend. The students coming over, we have got to vet these students. And I don't understand why we are opening our universities up to this. Our universities are opening us up to these liabilities when we have American kids on a waiting list that can't get into our own universities. Yeah,
and it's not just the universities.
Someone has to connect those dots.
It's not just the universities. At the NIH, for example, they have more than 1,000 Chinese nationals as scientists on staff at the NIH. These are all things of great concern, then we're going to keep an eye on it. I got one more thing I want to ask you about. Speaking of China and their infiltration of the United States. We have records now from Kash Patel and the FBI that show that the tens of thousands of driver's licenses that were seized at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport in August of 2020, that was part of an overall scheme by the Chinese to get fake IDs to people living in America to cast ballots for Joe Biden in 2020, which just might explain how he got to 81 million votes. Mass mail-in ballots from a virus that came from Wuhan, China, then driver's licenses that were mass-produced fraudulently using, however, real names and real addresses. I'm sure you've seen the stories. How concerned are you about that infiltration?
I'm extremely concerned. Listen, last Congress, I sat on the Oversight Committee. We know that the Biden family was corrupt. We know the Democrats will lie, cheat, and steal, to weaponize the Department of Justice to go after their political opponent. You know, sounds like a third world country to me. So I'm extremely concerned about this. We have got to restore trust with the American people in their number one right, and that is to vote as an American citizen, to have free and fair elections. This is a big problem. I applaud Kash Patel for uncovering this. We passed the SAVE Act in the House. The Senate needs to do their job, and the states need to do their job to make sure that we can provide fair and secure elections to the American people and provide some trust with them. So to me, big deal. And once again, another reason, China's in the middle of a nefarious act. Shocker. That's a big surprise.
Yeah, there they are trying to influence the election. I could never figure out how we got to 81 million. I always thought it was about the mass mail-in ballots. I think I've been proven right. We talked about it a lot here in the program. Not the machines, mass mail-in ballots, some of which may have been manufactured in China, but we'll see how far Kash Patel can ferret that out.
Steve, I'm hard-pressed to think that Joe Biden got more votes than Obama.
I would have to agree with you on that, or just about anybody else. Lisa McClain, greatly appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, everybody. There it is. Thanks for sticking with us. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more America's Voice Live. Don't go anywhere. America's Voice Live. I am Mike Crispy, filling in for Steve today. A big promise from President Trump's campaign was no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. It is a huge reason why President Trump didn't just win every swing state, but dominated every swing state and got remarkable coalitions together of working class people. If you guys don't remember, this was that phenomenal message that landed so well. Roll it.
So no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. And this last one is no tax. You work your ass off. No tax on overtime. And that's so good for the employers. One of our economists said, I think that's actually going to bring money into our economy.
So no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, looking out for our seniors. And these things, I think, are past overdue. And hopefully the big, beautiful bill and everything to come in the next couple of months will have that front forward for the world to see, and it will lead to great economic benefit. I'm sure of that. And here to join me to discuss from the National Taxpayer Union, our friend Pete Sepp. Pete, what do you make of the latest moves happening right now in D.C., Capitol Hill, as we move towards these campaign promises being fulfilled? What do you see happening, and how do you think it's going?
I think they're looking better all the time. When you examine the Senate's bill, for example, they're doing several improvements on the House bill that are going to increase the prospects for economic growth going forward. And as we know, this is a goal of the Trump administration. Secretary Bessent and the president have said they want to get our economic growth north of 3% annually. Currently, the projection is 1.8. So we've got a long way to go. Good tax policy can help get us there. The Senate bill would make permanent 3 vital business provisions. That's full and immediate expensing of equipment, full and immediate expensing of research and development, and making permanent a mechanism for writing off heavy debt financing for new structures. Again, those are the kinds of things we need to get the economy humming along. That's going to benefit workers. That's going to benefit middle-class investors, retirees, all of whom have a lot of investments in stocks and what have you. That's going to help keep this economy humming along. We need to also keep focused on the items you were talking about, too. The tax on tips promise, the tax on overtime promise. The Senate's bill is moving in a good direction there. They're making sure that there are good guardrails, like a limit of $25,000 worth of overtime and tips that you can take a deduction for. We've come up with an even simpler plan. Simply check a box on your tax return. If you're in a customarily tipped profession, or if you're what's called a non-exempt employee, in other words, somebody who qualifies for overtime, you get a deduction. It could be set at any amount Congress wants. Very simple, very easy. I think those are the kinds of ideas the American people are looking for here as we keep the tax burdens reasonable and work on cutting federal spending for real.
100%, Pete. And let me ask you this. Obviously, there's been some slowdowns with the big, beautiful bill. President Trump wants it by July 4th. We're talking about the bill. We just have a couple seconds here. Do you see it getting done? And why would any Republican members oppose? Because obviously some are inevitably opposed. They're going back and forth on some of these provisions. Why would any Republican be opposed to any of these things? And how do you see it shaking out from now to the 4th of July when Trump wants that bill on his desk? About 30 seconds.
There are a few Republicans who believe that there's too much spending restraint in the bill. They're worried about so-called cuts to social programs. There's no such thing in either the House or Senate version, only slowdowns in federal spending. If anything, they need to get more aggressive with getting spending under control. I hope the Senate holds its ground and its position prevails there, and we keep working on controlling federal expenditures. That is key alongside good tax relief.
I do agree that it is key. And let me ask you this, one more question before we go. related to the tariffs. Obviously, you know, we're tariffing foreign countries, and that's been a big thing. Do you have anything to add on that? Because President Trump has not let go with tariffs. How do you see that shaping out in the economic growth? You mentioned that earlier, the economic growth of the country in the next couple of really years. I mean, very pivotal. Do you see the tariffs contributing to economic growth, or do you think it's going to be what the leftists are saying, that will harm our economy? How do you see that in the next year to 3 years?
It all depends on how high the tariffs are, how retaliatory they are from other countries, and whether we're doing this with the goal of getting to zero tariffs and trade barriers with other countries. If we're doing that, President Trump's original vision, zero trade barriers, then we're going to be in a good place with the economy. If they continue and we get a lot of retaliation, we could see inflationary pressures, and we've got to watch out for that.
We gotta leave it there, but zero base tariffs, 100% right. All right, thank you very much for joining us, Pete. We appreciate it, and I want to tell you guys about a sponsor of this broadcast making it possible, and those are our friends over at Birch Gold Group. We are days away from what has been dubbed the Rio Reset, the greatest threat to the U.S. dollar's global dominance in the last 80 years. On July 6th, BRICS nations, Russia, China, India, Iran, and many more are expected to unveil their plans to circumvent the U.S. dollar, thus cratering its value. They've already been laying the groundwork as their central banks have been methodically divesting from U.S. dollar and U.S. bonds in favor of gold. How can you protect your IRA or 401k from the fallout from this landmark shift? Diversify with Birch Gold Group. Historically, gold has been a safe haven in times of high uncertainty, which is right now. Get a free info kit on tax-sheltered gold IRAs by texting the word America to 989898 right now. Text America to the number you see on the screen. July 6th marks a monumental shift happening among nations of the world's GDP. Arm yourself with information to diversify your savings. Text that number on the screen and get in touch with Birch Gold Group. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more America's Voice Live. Don't go anywhere. back, everybody, to America's Voice Live. I am Mike Crispy, filling in for Steve today. And joining me now, very special guest, Cameron Kinsey from Tax Network USA, spokesperson. Cameron, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for joining us. How does Tax Network USA help with tax resolutions and IRS issues out there that I know many, many Americans are facing?
Many Americans are facing this, and thank you so much for having me on. When the IRS comes after you, it's Tax Network USA ultimately that steps in. And if you're facing wage garnishment, back taxes, or a lien on your property, we really fight back against the IRS. We utilize every single tool available to us. And just because the deadline has passed, I know a lot of people have called about that, doesn't mean that the pressure is off from them. You know, these penalties do stack up over time, and so does the interest. But the good news is that you do have resources available. We have helped thousands of Americans get relief, and we'll do the same for you. But you really just have to take that first initial step in reaching out.
I hear you on that. So, can you explain, you mentioned a little bit about what you guys do. Can you explain how the tax preparation services work that you guys offer?
Yeah, we start with a one-on-one consultation with you just to gather a little bit more understanding about your financial situation. And if you do decide that you want to move forward, and by the way, that initial consultation is completely free of charge. We're actually offering 10% off of our services this month as well. But if you decide that you want to move forward with our services, then we handle all the necessary preparation. We identify every single deduction and credit that you may qualify for. We make sure that your filing is clean, it's compliant. So even though the tax season's over, filing, correcting, and amending those errors is really critical at this moment, especially if you've received those letters in the mail maybe, or you're already on the IRS's radar.
Yeah, that's no place you want to be. So a lot of small businesses, unfortunately and unfairly, find themselves on the IRS's radar. So are there any tax relief options available for small business owners? I know many of them out there who are facing difficulties caused by this crazy IRS pressure.
Yes, and we know how to use them. We negotiate penalty deductions, affordable payment plans, and in many cases, settlements for less than you actually owe. But I will say the longer you wait, the harder that it does get. But we know that small businesses, like you mentioned, are the backbone of this country. They get unfairly targeted all the time. So we make sure that the IRS doesn't destroy yours with unchecked power, with endless penalties, and we've got your back during this process.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, people need that if they do not have it. So how long does the process typically take? Obviously, you mentioned the free consultation, and then, people think that this might be a really complex thing. But how long are the issues resolved, and how long does it take for you guys to work it on like a timeline for people out there who are kind of facing these problems right now, looking how long it'll take to be resolved?
Yeah, it really just depends on the needs of your case. Most clients get immediate protection with us, meaning we can stop the IRS from calling you, from garnishing, from seizing assets. Final resolutions like settlements or lien releases can take up to several months, just depending on the case. But from the first call, we're putting the pressure on them, not the other way around. And if you decide that you want to move forward, we handle all communication with the IRS. You are not responsible for that. We basically act as a liaison between you and the IRS, so you're not having to deal with calling them and that burden on your shoulders when you're going home to your loved ones.
100%. And guys, that website on the screen right there, tnusa.com/RAV, or you can give them a call at 1-800-905-8000 right there, Tax Network USA. Please get in touch with them and do not let the IRS bullies unfairly treat you wrong. Thank you so much, Cameron, for joining us, and thank you for helping out our viewers.
Yep, thank you so much. Have a good one.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to keep the show rolling. Don't go anywhere. the show, everybody. Mike Crispy here. Been filling in for Steve. Thanks for joining us today. You know, it's really amazing how DEI continues to hang on for dear life. I think we need to rebrand DEI to deport every illegal, but the radical leftists will hang on to it, kicking and screaming. Unfortunately, in our university system right now, systems all over the country, it still exists. And another UNC, University of North Carolina, system administrator got caught on camera defending these disgusting DEI policies that America is thoroughly rejecting. Let's take a look at this.
We're trying to embed that kind of diversity, equity, inclusiveness, inclusive excellence really across. Like every area should have responsibility for that. Like it shouldn't just be like an office or a figurehead. But definitely in cultural affairs support the broader programming and
if you embed it, then it can't be that legislating.
There you go. There you go. Now you're understanding the strategy behind what it is.
And they always look the same, okay? They always look the same, the people pushing this in the schools, and it's not a pretty look. Here to join me to talk about what is going on, correspondent for Campus Reform, Emily Sturge. Emily, thanks for coming on the program today. Is this, we thought it was dying, you know, in the age of Trump. He basically took a sledgehammer to DEI initiatives, and people think it's going away, but it seems like these radical leftists are continuing to fight to preserve it. What are you seeing out there in schools across the country?
That's exactly what's going on. The leftist lunacy continues. Yes, we saw great progress reeling in some of these DEI policies across the country, but now we're seeing leftist administrators at colleges and universities across the country actually seeking to embed these policies so that they can circumvent anti-DEI legislation, state law, federal law, and continue getting those taxpayer resources. And this released footage at Western Carolina University is just the latest in the string of released footage that we've seen. 3 different administrators in the University of North Carolina system coming out and revealing exactly what's going on behind closed doors. Across the country, there is a great rebranding of diversity, equity, and inclusion happening in our university system, and it's certainly something we need to pay attention to and be aware of.
Yeah, and you talk about rebranding. I mean, you know, that article and those clips also showed how if they rebrand it and call it something else, then people won't notice that it's DEI initiatives. So they're trying to get sneaky with it. How are students reacting to this? Again, I think it's abundantly clear that President Trump woke up younger voters, did better as a Republican with younger voters than any presidential candidate has in a while. So we got about a minute here. How are younger voters reacting to it? And are they outright rejecting this? And how are they making their voice heard?
Well, you and I both know the left loves a good cover-up, whether it's the Hunter Biden laptop scandal or Biden's cognitive decline. And just the latest thing is this grand scheme to cover up these DEI initiatives. But guess what? Generation Z is rejecting this. And that's why I think my generation really showed so much support for President Trump in the November election, is because my generation was so used to having this toxic DEI divisive ideology shoved down our throats in the education system. DEI controls almost every single aspect of our lives on college campuses: admissions, hiring of faculty, our coursework, DEI offices present on our campus. Generation Z was rejecting it. We were sick of it. And that's why we're so excited to see this administration try to attempt to kill DEI, which is why we're paying attention to what's going on in our university campuses, because leftist university administrators are attempting to keep it alive.
Oh, my goodness. I tell you, they are attempting to keep it alive. And I think they do not have any hope to keep this up for the next 3.5 years. When you look at the lack of strength and stamina that those people have, those are the ones who are fighting, I think we're going to be just fine. Emily Sturge, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody. Appreciate her coming on. And as we wrap the show today, I think we need to, one more time before we wrap, just take a minute and take a look at all the incoming from every side of the equation as we're headed towards a prospective World War III, as the hysterical people will tell you on either side screaming. Take a minute and think, Why did I support Donald Trump so passionately? That's because deep down you knew the right thing, that he is the man to bring about world peace, and he will. So trust your gut, trust in Trump, and God bless America. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm Mike Crispy.
America's Voice family.
Are you on Getter yet? No?
What are you waiting for?
It's free.
It's uncensored.
And it's where all the biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the Getter app right now. It's totally free. It's where I put up exclusively all of my content 24 hours a day. You want to know what Steve Bannon's thinking? Go to Getter.
That's right. You can follow all of your favorites. Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec.
And so many more.
And the best part?
You can watch Real America's Voice right there on Getter.
Live.
So join the conversation.
Hop on the Getter chat room.
Engage with patriots who are just like you.
Good morning, Getter friends.
We're breaking news, we're delivering the truth,
and we're doing it on Getter
every single day.
So don't wait. Download the Getter app now.
Sign up for free and be part of the movement.
It isn't just an app. It isn't just a social media platform. It's a community.
All right, folks, guess what? We're not going to show you the bell today. You know why? It's markets closed. Banks are closed. Markets closed. June 19th, a Thursday. June 19th. Must be some sort of holiday. I'm kidding. It's Juneteenth, folks. But I just don't understand why markets and banks should be closed. So why is this a federal holiday today? The whole federal government is off today. But not this guy. My first guest has been in government for more than 34 years in one way, shape, or form or another, starting with the U.S. Border Patrol in Laredo, Texas, and working his way up to chief in 2017. In 2018, he was nominated by President Trump to lead both components of Homeland Security, which are ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. He's now the senior advisor for Customs and Border Protection. Welcome, Ron Vitiello. Ron, really good to have you back, my friend. It's been a while. So the soundbite I keep hearing, it's really stunning, actually, is that for the month of May, there were 0 illegals released into America. For the month of May under Donald Trump, this May, 0 illegals released into America. Maybe the first time since they've been keeping records, and certainly a lot higher than well, there you go, 62,000 in May of 2024. What about that? Congratulations. How you doing it?
Well, it's great. You know, the front line always had the ability to secure the border if they were given the right tools. And obviously, we have the right leadership at the White House, Secretary Noem at the Department of Homeland Security and Tom Homan helping all of us empower the front line, giving them the tools. And it's not just the front line of CBP and DHS, but it's also, 10,000 heroes from the Department of Defense. We have the Justice Department has gone leaning way in on felony prosecutions, misdemeanor prosecutions for those people who cross the border illegally. The State Department working in the hemisphere and outside of the hemisphere, making sure that countries take back the detainees who have been ordered removed by judges here in the United States. And so the interagency led by Stephen Miller is working in a way. My 40 years around this business, I've never seen it as effective as it is right now, and more to come. What we've done so far has to be sustained. We have to get some of these courts and these liberal judges out of the way so the front line can continue to advance on the principles of a safe America and a secure border. But it is about the leadership. It is about the will to make sure that the president gets what he ran on behalf of the American people.
You know, Ron, it strikes me that these, you close the border. In essence, there were no illegals. And again, folks, it's not that no illegals came across the border. There were apprehensions, but the apprehensions are substantially down. You can talk about that, Ron. But folks need to understand that during the entirety of the Biden administration, they would let illegals go. They catch them, they let them go into the heart of America. They give them a ticket and say, show up to court. And sometimes that court date, Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, 5-7 years in the future. And so they hang out for 5 or 7 years. They're not vetted, and they just live here. And they live and they suck up our resources. And now you guys shut it down. Is this a fair assessment?
Yes, we got about a 95% decrease in activity of physical illegal border crossings, which gives you about 100% increase in the capability of the men and women of the front line, right? Instead of processing people and getting them through the system so that they can be released. And if you conservative estimates, there's about 20 million people that came in under Biden. 11 million via their records, and they said 85% of them were released into the U.S. And like you said, they will not show up for their court dates, even though they're claimed asylum at the border. All of that nonsense is over. So you've got this increased capability at the line. You have consequences for those who come. They're more likely to get arrested. They're more likely to get prosecuted, and they will be removed quickly back home. And what that does, instead of encouraging people like we did under Biden, like they did under Biden, now people understand that there's a consequence. So they're choosing to stay home. And so that reduces the activity at the border, increases the capability. So drug smuggling is down as well in the case of, Border Patrol agents are seeing more cocaine, more fentanyl, and more marijuana because there's more of them out there watching the sensors, patrolling the border, and chasing those who continue to try to invade.
So I want to talk about the Border Patrol, the agents, the individual agents who are finally allowed to do their job. And we'll talk about what the instructions were over the prior 4 years and the instructions now. But in the meantime, Caroline Levitt addressed this in the briefing room today. Take a listen.
According to newly released numbers, last month, Border Patrol saw a 93% decrease of illegal aliens crossing the southwest border between ports of entry from May 2024 under Joe Biden, when they encountered more than 117,000 illegal aliens. And this particular statistic is absolutely astounding. In the month of May, under the Trump administration, 0 illegal aliens were released into our country by Border Patrol. Let me say that again. Not a single illegal alien was released into the interior of the United States of America last month under this administration.
And that's backing exactly what we were just chatting about. Ron, tell us now what the question I posed prior to that soundbite of what's the morale like for these border agents who've really, for the first time in 4.5 years, 4+ years now, they're enabled. They're told they can go ahead and do the job that they're hired to do.
That's right. These men and women of the front line are dedicated to the Constitution and the American people. They want to do their jobs. Look at any recruiting video online. Out in the brush, chasing things on motorcycles, on ATVs, on horses and helicopters, on foot. They're people of action. They want to serve this country, and now they have the tools to be able to do it. So instead of encouraging people to come across the border, we're discouraging them. And so morale is 1,000% better under this president, and recruitment is doubled since January 20th. So people are electing to come back to, they've gone back to work on the line on the physical border. And so the stress that they saw, all the misery that they saw under the Biden administration is now not affecting them or their families, right? This workforce is motivated. They know they have someone in the Oval Office that wants to protect them and give them the tools that they need to succeed. And so it's just great to see their success and recognizing how well they can perform if someone lets them.
Ron Vitiello we're talking to. So what are the numbers now for the apprehensions? I remember, when Trump was his last few months of presidency, the last year in April and May, the number was like 17,000 total apprehensions. Then it spiked into the 250,000, 300,000 per month under Joe Biden. What are they now?
Yeah, let me give you an example. If you average out the 2024 cycle, while Joe Biden was president, the Border Patrol encountered, that's not counting the gotaways, that's not counting the people who escaped. They encountered 5,100 people every single day. Every 24 hours, 5,100 people cross the border illegally, contrary to the law. Right now, the 7-day average for encounters at the border is 230.
Wow.
That's it. In 24 hours. So we went from 5,000 to 200. So that gives those agents the ability to save more lives.
That's like a half of 1%. It's like a 99.5% decrease in apprehensions.
And what that does is that it improves their capability at the physical border, but it also improves their ability to find people who are in distress and save their lives in the desert. It gives them the ability to interview children who may be trafficked by the adults that they're traveling with. It allows them to investigate smugglers and put charges against people who are facilitating entry into the United States. So it makes them better at what they do because now they have the time and the space to be effective.
Joe Biden never talked about it. The border czar, named border czar by Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, never talked about the issue at the border. Alejandro Mayorkas, the border, basically the DHS chief, secretary, said the border is not broken. What do you want to say? Let's be real honest here. Ron, let's just lay it on the line. Let's talk to the liberal Democrats, the progressives who will either see this or hear about this interview later. What do you want to say to the folks who said Mayorkas never thought there was a problem at the border, nor did Biden nor Harris? What's the real scoop?
Well, we have real leadership in place. Kristi Noem at the Department of Homeland Security. Tom Homan is the real border czar, not the fake border czar that we had under Biden. And we have a real president, an authentic president who is delivering on the promises he made on the campaign trail on behalf of the American people. So we have a president.
Ron, I'm asking you a question. Should Alejandro Mayorkas be brought in front of a Senate or a House hearing, and should he risk jail time for what he did?
We should never be in a situation where him or the president or the vice president can allow the border to be deteriorated in the way that he did it. And so, yeah, Senate investigations, get him under oath and talk about who was really in charge at the White House. We now know that President Biden was not cognizant of all the things that were going on. And so the border is an example. In his whole lifetime, 48 years in politics, he never advocated for an open border. I'm not sure he said it while he was the president either. So who was responsible for the destruction and the misery that was going on in those 4 years?
Destruction, misery, increased crime, use of our resources. They lied. I want to see him perp walked. American people want to see these folks perk walk. And, a Senate hearing, congressional hearing, that's fine, but they need to then make the recommendation to the Department of Justice so that Pam Bondi can go in and say, we are going to do a full-scale investigation into this, and if we find that they were lying and people are hurt because of these lies, and they were, we can prove they were, we know the numbers, throw them in jail. Throw them in jail. People died because of their lies.
Yeah, it was completely irresponsible. They betrayed the oath of their office and the American people.
Ron, continue to do good work. Please send it up the food chain. Homan and Noem gave me the opportunity to ride with some ICE and Border Patrol, and there was Rangers, Army Rangers were there. It was amazing. It was a great ride. You guys are locking it down, and these folks, I'm telling you, these folks want to do their job. I'm sure they're pretty pissed off about laying around, not watching all the illegals come across and not being able to do what they knew they were supposed to do. Ron Vidiel, thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me on.
Keep doing a great job, my friend. All right, folks. This month, Tax Network USA proudly celebrates our nation's birthday, honoring freedom, resilience, and financial independence. To mark the occasion, they're offering 10% off all services through 4th of July. If you're dealing with back taxes or missed the April 15th deadline, don't wait. The IRS rapidly stepping up enforcement penalties. Well, they can add up quickly, up to 5% per month. Get this, maxing out at 25% of your total tax bill just for not filing. That's on top of the tax bill that you already owe. But there's good news. Tax Network USA can still help you turn things around, whether you're self-employed, run a business, or your books are just a complete mess. Their team knows how to cut through the chaos and find solutions that work. Your consultation is always free, and getting ahead of the problem now could help you avoid harsh penalties, wage garnishments, or even surprise bank levies. Take the first step. Call 800-905-8000, 800-905-8000, or visit tnusa.com/RAV. Don't forget, you'll get 10% off all services through 4th of July as part of their celebration of our nation's birthday. Regain control of your finances with expert help from Tax Network USA. Also, go ahead to break. Just want to remind you about my podcast, YouTube page, both updated daily. All you have to do is hit subscribe on one of those areas at the bottom. You got that phone number? Mad Dog or Ben, you got that phone number for the voicemail? Throw up the slate if you have it. Folks, we're going to read some. We're going to listen to some of your voicemails towards the end of the show today, and some of them are unbelievable. They're great. That's the number. Call, leave your name, make it short. We'll get to yours. Hopefully we get to yours. I read them all, listen to them all. We'll get to the ones we can air on TV, as many as we can. We'll be back in 2.5 minutes. Folks, let's do this next guest, retired Air Force Special Ops Commander, Major Glenn Ignazio, who joins us to update us on the Israel-Iran conflict. Major, thank you so much for joining us. Wow, it's moving so fast. Today, President Trump and Caroline Leavitt said that this is interesting. Well, I think we have it. Let's take a listen to Caroline Leavitt. We have it? Do we have it?
I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks."
So I parse these things. This was a statement Caroline Leavitt delivered from President Trump. I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. May or may not take place. I will make my decision within the next 2 weeks. Meaning he's not going to wait 2 weeks. He could decide today, tomorrow, or up to 2 weeks to decide whether he's going to, if it's go time, and it still might happen. So what are your thoughts on, will the U.S. be involved in more kinetic nature of what's going on in the Middle East?
I mean, to absolutely put a cap, not just for today, but for many years or possibly permanently, the entire threat that Iran could have a nuclear weapon or anything, I think that this facility in Fedora has to go. That's where they've been hiding it. And honestly, because of how deep it is, Israel doesn't have those particular weapons. We only do. And I think that would end it. And I think the biggest thing is people understand this is a tactical strike. This is not a war. I feel like we have to educate some politicians here. But it's just a tactical strike. We're getting in, we're getting out. That's our exit criteria. We close the door on the Iranian threat and all their proliferation to any of their terrorist factions. To me, that seems like a pretty matter of fact.
So, Major, let's do it this way. I agree with you. I think you need that. We have a bomb that has actually two bombs. One precedes the second one. It busts open the ground. The second one gets in deeper and explodes deeper. We have that. Can't we just sell it to Israel and let them deploy it?
Well, it weighs 30,000 pounds, each one. Each one weighs 30,000 pounds. It's about 20 feet long and about 3 feet in diameter. So the important part about this, because of the penetration, so it has to be dropped high altitude. It has to be dropped very fast. So it has that energy to get 200 feet down. In all honesty, you could drop this out of a C-130, but the problem is that they can't fly as high and they can't fly as fast. So all that energy it needs to get deep, about 200 and something feet down, B-2 is the only thing that can carry it. And so that's what really puts it on the United States shoulders.
So Major, again, we sell them a B-2 and sell them a handful of these whatever they're called. What's the name of this bomb? It's not a bunker buster. It's something else, right? It's a more high-tech bomb.
Massive ordnance penetrator is what they're calling it. The MOP, I guess.
The MOP, massive ordnance penetrator. The MOP things up, certainly MOP. So we sell them, or we lease them. We don't want them to have the technology. We lease them, a B-2, and then take it back afterwards. I mean, you can't say we pushed the button, right?
Well, yeah, you got a good point there, but you also have to learn how to fly a B-2. That's going to take some months. It's going to take a long time. That's you're looking at a significant amount of time. So could you put it in the Israeli force? Well, selling the B-2, a lot of those classified stealth secrets, we'd be giving it away. So the plausibility of Israel doing this, like in some kind of loan like that, I just don't see it happen. And again, it would take many months to even just train pilots to be able to put it on target.
So what are your thoughts then? Okay, barring the use of this amazing technology bomb, should we again? There's a big split in the MAGAverse right now, and there's certain groups that say don't do it. We elected Trump on not going to any more wars, and the other group is saying wipe Iran off the map because it'll be safer everywhere. I fall in between both of them right now, but I'm not going to. I think we trust Donald Trump. I think we just trust Trump no matter what. But what do you, as a military person, think the American people should be expecting?
Yeah, well, first of all, we always want the safety of our aviators out there. And right now, the entire airspace has been dominated by Israel. So the aircraft are both, they're stealthy and we have the safety there. But the biggest thing is, and again, people have to understand, it's like, look, if we say, and this is where we've been bad in the past many years, Afghanistan and everything else, is what our exit criteria is. If we're saying our entry is to strike that only target and get out, that's our exit criteria, and that's it. That's very definitive. And again, it's a tactical target, a tactical event. We're not talking about war. We're not talking about invading the country, boots on the ground. That would be absolutely stupid. And I don't see that happening. But if Israel cannot take that facility out in any other way, which we don't really see anything plausible, then this would shut the door. And again, we have to think about it. It's not just Iran attacking people. People feel like that wouldn't happen, but the proliferation of every terrorist organization. Would you want any kind of nuke capability brought into the country of the United States or Saudi Arabia or anything else? This would close the door. And honestly, it reminds me when Schwarzkopf told Bush Sr., hey, let's go to Baghdad. And we didn't. And look what happened. I'm sure Trump is probably in that same high-stress environment.
Here's another piece of calculation, too. And again, during the briefing today, and I listened to everything Caroline says with every single word. I want to parse every word that comes out because she's in these briefings. She's in with the top of the top, the secretaries, the top advisors. So she's hearing these things. She's writing them down. She said, I haven't heard this before, Iran already has everything they need to assemble the bomb, which means they have enough enriched uranium. They have the device to deliver it and the device to explode the bomb, which we haven't heard that before. She said they're just waiting for the Ayatollah to give them the signal. Is that new news, or is this a spin on what we've been hearing for many, many years that they're close?
Yeah, I agree. It actually got my attention, so I'm glad you addressed it, because when she said that, I was like, okay, that's That's a little bit different. We sort of tipped our hat. Are we saying that this is the way it is? And in all honesty, the best intelligence coming out of Iran is from the Israelis because they have the entire country inundated with their intelligence operatives. So when she said that, I completely am with you. It's like, wait a minute. They were supposed to be in that 60, 80% of enrichment. They got to be in 90% to get to weapons. So is there something more? And so since so much has happened and we've gotten into Iran so much deeper, was more intelligence brought out that they are on the cusp of having a weapon. I'm completely with you. And if anything, that would escalate the situation as far as the impending type of strike. And that would push me over the edge if I was sitting in President Trump's seat to say, yeah, we're going to go take that out. There is no way that's coming to the surface. Let's go do it. I agree with you completely.
I'm on a group thread with like 40 journalists in the Middle East and throughout Europe. And they're hearing these things. They're hearing the United States news, and they're hearing stuff coming directly from Iran. They're hearing from Israel as well. One thing that came out earlier today, and I sent it into the group, I said, if that happened, that might draw America into this war in a greater commitment level, kinetically even. There was word that the Iranians may think about closing the Strait of Hormuz, where somewhere around 20-25% of the world's oil moves through the Strait of Hormuz. That would spike oil prices, that would wreck economies around the world. And I know Trump is very, very cognizant of the price of oil. My point is, have you heard the rumblings of this? And if it were true, I think that would just force us to go ahead and just wipe out any Iranian ship vessel that's in the area of the Strait. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad you addressed it because not too many people have. Is look at the Air Force of Iranian, the Iranian Air Force is wiped. Their anti-aircraft is wiped. They only have their missiles, and every time they fire it, Israelis are going after it because you're saying, "Here I am." But they didn't talk about the Navy, and I completely agree with you. Straits of Hormuz, they get shut down. That's the problem. So looking at the Navy because they can get closer to Diego Garcia, where our bombers are, or shut down that area. Absolutely. And so that's why I believe our fleets need to go there and make sure it doesn't happen. That's about the only thing that I could see Iran strategically impacting anything that would have my highest interest on top of the nuclear threat.
Major, put a carrier strike group. I think there's one there. Put a second one in the area. Put one right in the Strait and consider any Iranian vessel in the area as a threat and take them out. About right.
Yeah, we have the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain, and then you also have the Carl Vinson and Nimitz that's standing there. So you're really going to have three, and you got to look at it. Yeah, you got to look at the ships, anything else that's out there, the mining. So yes, having the carrier groups there, both for protecting ourselves against missiles and so forth. But yeah, absolutely, the naval threat is something people haven't talked about. I'm really glad you brought it up.
And honestly, they should just tell them right now, even if you're patrolling your Iranian flagged vessel, we're going to sink you. Or you just do not even approach the Strait in that general area. This is a very, very important shipping channel for the world. Major, Glenn Ignazio, appreciate your time. Long time we did TV years and years ago, but good to see you again, my friend.
Absolutely. Great to see you too, Eric. Take care of yourself, man. Thanks for talking about these things.
Yep. You too, brother. We'll bring you back because this isn't going to end anytime soon that we can see. Thank you.
No.
All right, folks, we'll be back 2.5 minutes. know some folks, Democrats really don't want us to continue digging into the big Biden cover-up.
And my other question is, why is this important to know now? We got a lot of stuff to be concerned about at the moment.
When is Jake Tapper going to write a book about the cognitive decline of the person who is in charge right now?
Tapper? When is Jake Tapper going to write a book? They're hoping that Tapper's book seals the deal and everyone can just move on. Happy now? Well, no, not really. Well, why? Because the Biden presidency did more damage in just 4 years than any other presidency in the history of this country. And we have to know just how much that cover-up played into the damage we see right now. It's more important now than ever it's been to understand how and why this happened. Democrats didn't have the guts to sit through a Senate hearing on the Biden dementia cover-up on Wednesday.
Not a single Democrat is here today because not a single one of them gives a damn about the fact that they lied to the American people for 4 years. They knew. Every one of them knew that Joe Biden was mentally not competent to do the job. The White House press secretary, she knew when she stood in front of the American people and lied over and over and over again. And they're not here because they can't defend themselves.
It matters that Joe Biden was degenerative. He was losing it because he's responsible for the very situation we find ourselves in with Iran right now.
Would you support an attack on Iran's nuclear sites by Israel?
The answer is no. I think there's things. We'll be discussing with the Israelis what they're going to do, but all 7 of us agree that they have a right to respond.
Just think about how stupid that statement is. Before I get into why it's so incredibly stupid, watch now how President Trump answers a similar question about strategy.
Have you been answered questions about whether you are moving closer, or you believe the U.S. is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities? Where's your mindset on that?
I can't say that, right? You don't seriously think I'm going to answer that question? Will you strike the Iranian nuclear component? And what time exactly, sir? Sir, would you strike it? Would you please inform us so we can be there and watch? I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that Iran's got a lot of trouble.
Sir, can I get a press pass to watch the strike of the Iranian nuclear facility? See what he did? He embarrassed the stupid question by a stupid leftist liberal reporter. Ambiguity, strength. That's how you answer a question. Should Israel attack Iran's nuclear sites? Biden says no, which was perfectly in line with releasing $6 billion for Iran to expand their nuclear capabilities under Joe Biden. Ambiguity, not knowing what Trump is going to do, is the key deterrence. Not knowing what Trump is going to do. That's power. Biden's lack of mental acuity made that impossible. He always said what he was going to do. There was no secrets about Joe. He had none. He had no cards to play. What happened to keeping the adversary guessing? If our enemy knows that certain sites are off the target list, then our enemy can make plans, concentrate resources elsewhere. For what it's worth, Biden's always been garbage at foreign policy.
When I went over immediately after that happened, I said to Bibi, don't make the same mistake we made in America. We want to get bin Laden, and we'll help you get Sinwar. But we went into Afghanistan it made sense to go get bin Laden.
Really? Except that the truth is that Biden opposed the raid on bin Laden and counseled Barack Obama against it.
Mr. President, my suggestion is don't go. We have to do 2 more things to see if he's there. He walked out and said, I'll give you my decision.
That's right. He's always been, pardon my French, a dumbass at foreign policy, even having sat on the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate. Turns out Biden was one of 2 no votes to go get bin Laden. His logic, he didn't want to upset Pakistan, the same Pakistan that was harboring and protecting that known terrorist. Always been garbage at foreign policy. Put a Biden with dementia running the free world, finger on those nuclear codes, making it possible for Iran to go nuclear? Of course. Americans deserve answers to these questions. And who was also guiding this ridiculously stupid and lax global policy regarding Iran? Well, I give you Robert Malley. By the way, who's Robert Malley, you may ask? Well, Biden took hundreds of naps on a beach in Delaware. There was an Iranian spy and a spy ring going on right under his nose on the beach. Robert Malley was Biden's Middle East whisperer. Oh, he's under FBI investigation for passing classified information to Tehran right now. No big deal, just massive treason happening right under Dementia Joe's watch. And he's one of the masterminds of Biden's dangerously inept foreign policy that has now put our country at this massive risk. Malley was part of Obama's disastrous nuclear deal, too. Watch.
Today, after 2 years of negotiations, the United States, together with our international partners, has achieved something that decades of animosity has not. A comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
Obama's only excuse for bending the knee to Iran was his hatred of America and his hostility towards Israel. Well known. Biden's mental decline and the fact that his own presidency was Obama 3.0 means that he continued in that vein, which clearly leads to the mess we're in today. Or maybe, just maybe, Joe Biden's obsession with trying to take out his political opponent was yet another crucial distraction. Turns out that internal FBI email reveals that the Biden's DOJ, their obsession with finding new ways to file criminal charges against President Trump, took them off the ball for everything else that was going on in the world. So a mental decline combined with a fervent need to take down his political opponent. Trump sounds like a deranged madman, was at the helm of the country for 4 years. Damage was being done. Americans deserve answers now. And sorry, Democrats, we're not moving on until we have those answers. All right, folks, look at this.
We're John and Chelsea Jubilee, and we want to share with you the breakthrough science of intracellular hydration.
This is optimal health at the cellular level, pushing hydration into your cells, optimizing every organ in your body.
For 5 days, we're going to share with you 5 amazing things about health and wellness you probably never heard before.
We're going to give you the strategies of how to have sustainable success. You can have your best health at the cellular level and your best body that you've ever had.
We're so excited. We cannot wait to see you there and have this be your breakthrough.
This is your time. Let's go.
Well, that was a look at John and Chelsea Jubilee talking about Energize Health, the 5-5-5 challenge. Here to discuss is founder of Energize Health, John Jubilee. John, before we get into it, Harvard Health says that the thickness of your blood can be an important indicator for things like heart attacks, strokes, and other heart-related diseases, but wider variety of symptoms might indicate you have what's called sludge blood. Tell us what this is and how we can ensure against getting sludge blood.
Yeah, so just, I love to make things simple for people, Eric, and just picture the difference between water and ketchup. So water is the natural healthy viscosity that our blood really should be like water. But as our blood thickens, because it's dehydrated, so when the blood gets dehydrated, it becomes sludge blood like ketchup. And so, of course, it's way harder for the heart to pump that through the arteries. It makes it, debilitating to the human body in every way. And so absolutely, it can cause strokes. It can cause all kinds of challenges. It can absolutely cause a heart attack with the sludge blood. So by pushing that healthy hydration into the cell and getting a healthy viscosity, you're able to alleviate all of those things. And you also are optimizing all of your organs as well, because if it's getting into your blood, it's also getting into your thyroid, your kidneys, your heart, your liver, your pancreas, your brain. You're optimizing yourself at the cellular level by getting that intracellular hydration in there.
Again, not a doctor, but I assume if you have thicker or sludge blood, your heart has to work harder to pump the same blood just to keep you alive. So you're aging your heart while you're just living, right?
Well, you absolutely are. And we have thousands of stories, tens of thousands, by the way, of clients that they share, when I used to, go and get a blood sample taken, it would be so slow coming into the container. But after they got their intracellular hydration, boom, those containers just fill right up because they could physically see the difference from going from sludge blood to healthy viscosity hydrated blood. And absolutely, it is one of the most dangerous things that anybody can do is to get dehydrated. By the way, 99.9% of every illness and disease through our experience of 28 years is tied to cellular dehydration. And so just think about it for anybody that craves sugar, that's the number one sign you're dehydrated. If you feel like you drink water, but you never really feel like your thirst is quenched, that's another sign you're dehydrated. If you pinch your skin and it doesn't snap back immediately, you are dehydrated at the cellular level, and you need to get that cellular hydration so that you can be optimized and don't have any of those fears or concern for your long-term health.
John, got about a minute or so. Run something. This 555 challenge that you run. Tell us about it and what it does.
Yeah, so super simple. One of the funnest things we do. This is like a long cup of coffee. Chelsea and I, my beautiful wife, we sit down with you less than an hour a day for 5 days. And it's the price of a cup of coffee, by the way. So just invest $5 in yourself and come and join us on this 555. But we will go a deep dive with you into your intercellular hydration. What is the science behind it? We'll even tie in your cellular trauma. And we'll do a little test to help you understand, do I have cellular trauma and how to reverse it? So guys, just invest $5, or you could also join the VIP and you get some extra days with Chelsea and I, and we FedEx you a device to measure your intracellular hydration if you sign up for the VIP. But super simple. It's my555challenge.com, my555challenge.com. But it will absolutely be transformative. And by the way, we guarantee you'll lose 5 pounds of fat, not weight. And you'll learn the 5 things to never do to never fail again.
That's a lot of 5s. My555challenge.com and energizehealth.com/TV. Tell them Bolling sent you. John, really good having you. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
All right, I'll see you again soon. All right, folks, 2.5 minutes. We'll be back. Welcome back. Democrats, well, they've become extremely comfortable taking things way too far. That's what they like to do, whether it's their comments on TV or their obnoxious protests. Everything this party does seems to go at least one step over the line. Jim Acosta, remember him from CNN, just made a comment about Trump's deceased ex-wife, Ivana, not Ivanka, Ivana, the wife. That I would say lands over the line category. Listen to this deranged rant about ICE and immigration.
I got a question, though. Where are the ICE raids at the Trump properties?
Yes.
Can somebody call ICE on the Trump golf course in Virginia?
Yes,
You're telling me there's nobody in there that is undocumented or has some kind of squirreliness going on with their paperwork? Give me a break. Hey, how many immigrants has he married? He's got one buried at his golf course in New Jersey. Isn't she buried by the first hole or the second tee or something like that?
The first hole, yeah, it's the first hole.
Immigrants always doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do.
What a disrespectful SOB. Jim Acosta. Next clip, absolutely insane. The craziest part is that my source for this video is Eric Swalwell's Twitter account, X account. That's right, folks. The disturbing anti-immigration ad that you're about to see came right off Swalwell's X account. Roll the clip.
I had a really good time today.
Yeah, me too. I really like.
What are you doing?
She's coming with us.
What are you talking about? Who are you?
I'm your Republican congressman. Now that we're in charge, we're rounding up illegals.
She was born here. She's a citizen.
I don't care. She looks like one of them. But don't worry. When she's in prison in El Salvador, she'll have lots of company.
People are gross. They're disgusting. Anna Navarro claims to be a Republican, but she's not. Wants us to believe that deporting illegals is going to drive up milk prices here in the United States. Listen to this ridiculous lie.
And look, what's going to happen here is that we're going to find that milk gets a lot higher, because I don't know if any of you have ever been in a dairy farm. It is god-awful work. We're going to see that groceries and vegetables are higher. We're going to see an effect in our economy, because whether people like it or not, whether Americans acknowledge it or not, undocumented immigrants are an integral part of our society and our economy. And we're going to have to get used to seeing the videos of U.S. citizens detained, of U.S. citizen children being ripped from the arms of their mothers and while they wail, of, dads and moms and business owners. Yeah, we're going to have to get used.
So first of all, if they're breaking the law if they're here. Second of all, if they're not illegals doing the work, then Americans will be doing the work. Will they be paid a higher wage? Maybe, probably. Will prices go up? Maybe a little bit. But there's more money in the American economy, folks. I mean, that higher wages create more tax revenue for bigger government, which I'm against anyway. But you can't have illegals come in here taking American jobs. You just can't do it, Anna Navarro. So, no, there's nothing wrong with deporting people who are here illegally. Come here legally, get visas, great. Get a work visa. It's easy. Takes a little bit of time. Get your work visa. You can stay. MSNBC cut off Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, as he was listing some of Trump's tremendous border success stories from last month. Listen to how quickly they closed the curtains and tried to change the topic.
As was mentioned by the chairman, we are working to achieve 100% operational control of the border. Illegal crossings have decreased 99.9%, and it was just reported today that CBP released 0 illegals into the U.S. last month, down from 62,000 released into the interior.
Secretary of Defense Hegseth talking about the Pentagon's budget there on the right side of your screen. On the left, there's President Trump. He just stepped out of the White House, constructing some very towering flags on the north and south lawns.
Wow, they couldn't handle it. Let's cut away. Hold on. He's speaking the truth. We can't have real truth on this network. Now it doesn't fit the narrative. MSDNC, Sonny Hostin, another View person, decided to weigh in on the Israel-Iran conflict, and she immediately showed us all just how little she knows about anything. Listen to her try and explain why Israel's strike on Iran was what she says problematic.
That's what I think is very problematic, because what people aren't talking about is that Israel preemptively struck Iran. And so I think the conversation would be very different if another country preemptively sent missiles to this country, right? No one would be saying, this is fine with... Sure.
Because I think that the Iranians and the Israelis believe that Iran would like to completely destroy Israel. That Iran is an actual existential threat to Israel.
But that does
so
not...
So they're saying, if you're trying to kill us, we want a nuclear bomb. And we don't want you to have a nuke.
That is fine, but you have to do that legally and under international law.
Well, Iran's launched tons of missiles against Israel in the last 2 years.
You're not supposed to do this.
I'm not sure Iran does things illegally.
But under international law, Israel should not be preemptively striking another country.
Sonny, October 7th, 2023, Iran, or one of their proxies, Hamas, slaughtered 1,400 innocent Jewish young kids going to a music festival. Is that your international law that you're talking about? Sonny Huston, just shut the hell up, please. Chicago Mayor, let's go. Brandon Johnson just add another one-liner to his list of idiotic quotes. This was a bad one. He wants us to think that Trump is trying to rid America of black people. Those are his words, folks, not mine. Listen to this guy.
Much like we fought for civil rights 60 years ago, we're going to continue to make sure that whether you are black, brown, Asian, white, young, old, working people deserve to be prioritized. And this misnomer that there's division, and consternation within communities solely based on this issue is just wrong. He's working to eliminate black history. He is trying to eliminate black existence from this country, but he's also attacking the LGBTQ+.
I wouldn't say he's trying to eliminate black existence.
We're going to bring people together in this country to make sure we build the safest, most affordable big city in America.
It's bad when even a CNN host tries to rein in the horrible rhetoric that a liberal progressive would spew on their network. She said, I don't think he's trying to eliminate black people from the country. This guy, listen, I don't know. Can African Americans be called racist? Because if they can, that man is he's Harvard textbook racist for saying the things he says about Trump and MAGA supporters. AOC thinks we need to rein in the media. I wonder why. Why now? Why does she all of a sudden think that now is the time to rein in the media when they've been peddling toxic and defamatory lies about Republicans for years? They hid Joe Biden's dementia for the last 4 years, but now the media needs to be reined in, according to AOC.
I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're looking into.
Mayorkas said the border is just fine. There's nothing broken about the border. 20 million people came in. You heard Ron Vitiello say that. They said Joe Biden was peak of his game, right? Joe Scarborough, peak of his game 2 weeks before he was bounced for Kamala Harris. The media lies. They lied. The legacy media lies. The legacy media is historically liars, but I'm just curious how AOC now thinks they need to rein in the legacy media when they've been doing it forever. And they've been trashing Trump for the better part of 20 years. Before we hit the break, I want to remind you about the podcast and YouTube page. Again, updated daily, all the stuff. Just hit one of those places: Rumble, Apple, YouTube, Spotify, iHeart, Other, come to Rav, go to Getter, you go anywhere. Just hit subscribe, please. Whatever you do, hit subscribe. Also, we got some voicemails coming up. You're going to love this segment. I absolutely love this. I've listened to every single one that came in, and literally, I got a flood of voicemails coming in when we mentioned this yesterday. There's the number. Leave you a message. I'll see if I can get some in tomorrow as well. But we're going to read some. We're going to play some for you right after the break. I challenge you not to have fun with this segment, because after I asked you for calling in, just call us in on the voicemail. I said I'd play some of them. I got inundated. You guys are great. I love them. I can't read them all. I can't play them all for you, but let's go through these. Let's Benny, pull up Steve first, who apparently loves the show. Listen.
Hey, man, this is Steve Hanks from the great state of West Virginia. Just want to say this: you have an absolutely wonderful show. I've been watching ever since it came on, and you're spot on about virtually, I would say 100% of everything. And just keep up the good work, and God bless. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that, Steve. Awesome. Again, some of you folks got really into some of the stuff. Take a listen to John from Virginia.
Hey, my name is John Kessler. I live in Blackstone, Virginia, Nottoway County. I support President Trump 100%. Somebody should have took out the Iranians a long time ago.
Yep, I think he's right. He went on to say a couple of things we couldn't play on the air, but again, keep them pithy, keep them short, 10, 15, 20 seconds. These are great. Al from Florida had some ideas for immigration. Listen.
Eric Bolling, my name's Al Gerner, calling from Florida, D-Land, Florida, right in the center. We need Tom Homan to come out and publicly say, look into the cameras, point into the living rooms of the illegal aliens in this country and tell them, if you vote, you're gone.
This is really, really good idea, right? Homan and Noam, if they come out and President Trump saying, if we find out you voted and you're an illegal, you're gone. You'll never come back. We're not going to give you citizenship, even if you try and come in the right way. You're done. I think it's a great idea. We'll stop them from voting one way or another. Now, this young lady, great comment about Israel. And listen to the next two, because I'll set this up this way. The first one has an opinion on what we or they should do about Israel and Iran. And the next one may be a counterpoint on the first one. Take a listen.
Hi, Eric. I think we should focus on our illegals and our big, beautiful bill and let Israel focus on Iran. Do not want to see anybody killed. Yeah, thank you.
That's very common, very, very, very common opinion amongst the conservative folks. Again, everyone, we follow Trump. We voted him in. He's the commander in chief. We'll follow what he does. Other people have different ideas. That lady says, let Israel handle Iran. Here's another idea.
Oh, yeah. And if Donald Trump wants to smoke Iran, I'll light the match. This is Embry, Metairie, Louisiana. Metairie. Yeah, y'all. God bless you. Yeah.
Well, God bless you too, Embry from Metairie, Louisiana. She said if Trump wants to smoke Iran, she light the match. Awesome. All right. Philip from Idaho also likes the show.
Hi, my name is Philip. I live here in Meridian, Idaho. I watch you on 22.1 on America's Voice Live. I enjoy your show immensely. Keep up the good work. God bless you, man.
Thank you. God bless you too. Again, folks, send them in. Send your thoughts in about the show. Great. You got problems? Great. Let us know. Let us know what you think about Iran, Israel, border, immigration, anything. Trump, whether the MAGA, what's going on in the perceived MAGA split, what you think we should do, they should do, what MAGA should do. And then one more. Let's just do one more. Cindy from Tennessee.
Hi, my name is Cindy McAllister. I'm calling from Tennessee. Iran mentioned a surprise. What do you think it is? Multiple choice. Number one, drop a nuclear bomb. Number two, activate terrorist cells. Or number three, opening a Hooters in Tehran. Have a good one, Eric.
Cindy from Tennessee. That would be a surprise, wouldn't it? The Hooters of Tehran, folks. All right, very quickly, I got to get to this. I was listening to Fox, and it pissed me off beyond belief. This guy, Trey Gowdy, don't like him. And he took a shot at our friend Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson, but Steve Bannon, listen.
He is MAGA. He is America first. So when you are that, you get to define what that means. And again, I keep coming back to the point that there's several critics, too. One used to be on television, I think. The other used to be in prison, I think. Those are the two main critics. Together, they have received 0 electoral votes for president. Neither one of them has the guts to run. So either run for president to be the commander-in-chief or critique in private, or better yet, shut up.
And just to answer your question on why don't they critique him in private, I would posit that then they'll miss all that attention on social media for doing it publicly.
No, you're so cynical, John. Why'd you get so cynical?
Hey, Trey Gowdy, Steve Bannon has more guts in his little finger than you got in your body. And Tucker Carlson, love him or hate him, doesn't matter. He's done more. He's accomplished more than you ever will. Trey, time for you to shut the hell up. All right, let's send it over to say, I'm going to send that soundbite over to Bannon, and hopefully he addresses it on the War Room next. So, War Room, up in 3 seconds.
Regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today. As for correspondence between the United States and the Iranians, I can confirm that correspondence has continued. As you know, we were engaged with 6 rounds of negotiations with them in both indirect and direct ways, in implementing a peace through strength foreign policy agenda. And with respect to Iran, nobody should be surprised by the president's position that Iran absolutely cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. He's been unequivocally clear about this for decades, not just as president, not just as a presidential candidate, but also as a private citizen. In fact, I have some quotes for you. In 2011, President Trump said, "America's primary goal with Iran must be to destroy its nuclear ambitions. We cannot allow this radical regime to acquire a nuclear weapon that they will either use or hand off to terrorists." In 2015, the president said, "The problem is that Iran poses an existential threat to Israel, our Middle Eastern allies, and the United States." And of course, the president has repeated that in his first term as president and his second term as president as well. That's why he was adamantly opposed to the disastrous Iranian nuclear agreement that was implemented by President Obama. And it's why he has given great latitude and given a lot of effort to achieving a diplomatic solution. But he's been very clear. Iran went for 60 days when he gave them that 60-day warning without coming to the table. On day 61, Israel took action against Iran. And as I just told you from the president directly, he will make a decision within 2 weeks.
When you are in a pivotal moment for a presidency, which I think it is fair to call this moment, and a decision of this magnitude arises, what do those conversations normally look like? And then compare that to what we are seeing from this administration.
Well, I don't think you should compare this administration to anything else in American history.